Well, look, from the very beginning, I doubted the economic viability of this sort of scheme. Buying these prefabricated units from China and shipping them here, the financial benefit just goes to China. But of course, the report of the weekend, CIMC had actually liquidated some of its operations in the UK, is not a good signal in terms of the demand in the market for this sort of construction. And Sir Joe said in Parliament that he was talking to an entity in the UK that developed the Newcastle University accommodation block, and it was that entity that's been liquidated in the UK.
We don't know that for sure, though, do we?
Well, if you take what Sir Joe said in Parliament, he said it was the entity that built it. If you look at all the sources in the UK, it indicates that this entity built it. There's only two entities in the UK I'm aware of in relation to this entity. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but it certainly seems that way. And certainly when Joe is now talking about, or also Joe is talking about going directly to China, it obviously indicates a change of plan in his mind.
In respect of it not benefiting the local construction industry, Sir Joe told Parliament that the jobs that it would effectively replace are not local jobs anyway. They are jobs that are currently being undertaken by workers for largely, I think, Portuguese firms, and that therefore those would be the jobs that are being effectively challenged by this project, not jobs that might see a more direct economic benefit for Gibraltar.
Yeah, but when you look at the way these units are constructed, they come complete. They come complete with plumbing, electrics, everything goes in the unit. So basically it's not just the people who do the physical building, it's the entire industry that surrounds construction in Gibraltar. You're cutting out the plumbers, the wholesalers, the people who supply electrical equipment. I mean, it's completely ignoring the people in Gibraltar that support the construction industry, and they certainly would be affected. In terms of the temporary supply of labour that comes in and out, they will be spending in Gibraltar too, because if what he's saying is it will need less labour because this stuff is just fitted together by Lego bricks, then there will obviously be a consequential knock-on effect in terms of the trickle down into the economy.
And one thing he said would happen here still is the foundation works, just to clarify that. But more generally, you think that the project is not the direction that the GSD would want in respect of providing residential care for senior citizens? You'd like to see a different... I mean, you're not satisfied with the concept of modular construction and what's being proposed?
Well, I have a lot of questions, and the first thing I'd like to point out is this is not residential accommodation for the elderly. This is actually an elderly care nursing home. This is the same as Mount Alvenia. I think it's very important that people understand that. It's a very big difference. I have issues not just with the construction, but also the idea that this is somehow going to be a private development in which the government will then buy in an allocation of rooms. I have a number of questions into Parliament, and I really need to understand better how this is going to work and how this is going to benefit our elderly. I don't think this sort of development, without taking into account the wider planning aspect of the Rook site, which we still don't know what is going to go there, as to whether this is the best use of the space in the best possible way, in the most pleasing way. Yeah?
So you think that a holistic plan for the whole of Rook, which perhaps includes a residential home, would be a better idea?
Well, of course. I mean, I think any rational human being would come to that conclusion. And again, I emphasize this is an elderly care home, not just a residential. And this is not Bishop Ganesha, this is not Albariso. This is nursing care. So it's a completely different type of proposition.
You say that on the basis of the architect's drawings?
Well, yes, I think the architect made it quite clear. Made clear who the client was and made clear what its purpose was. And that is certainly the information we have. Again, if anybody wants to correct me, I'm happy to be corrected. But that is the information that we have in the public domain. I will be asking a lot more questions. I want to know what premium was paid for the site. I want to know what contracts have been entered into. And more importantly, I want to know who the joint venture agreement was signed with and when it was signed. Because there's lots of questions arising from that.
Wasn't it confirmed that it was Beijing Liuwan Construction Company?
That is the owner of the joint venture entity GBIC. But Sir Joe said in the House he'd signed an agreement with an entity in the UK. I don't have the name of the entity, but I have a question in Parliament as to who that entity is.
Okay. And in broad terms, you'd like Sir Joe to reconsider this plan?
I don't see that it's going to bring any immediate, not even long-term financial benefit to Gibraltar, because even if this was a great idea, I don't see that we have the physical infrastructure to see it through. We don't have the container ports. I don't think we have the space. When we look at the modern world, it's all about cyber industry, not about nuts and bolts. So whereas it may work in China or in other larger countries, I don't know if it necessarily works for us. I'm not convinced as to the business plan of this sort of project.
Could it work if the factory, for lack of a better term, that the joint venture intends to build was not in Gibraltar, but perhaps somewhere in the area and much closer to nearby markets than China?
It might do, but again, I'd have to look at the detail of that. I mean, everything is possible, but the economics of it depends obviously on the logistics and as to where you would locate this factory, whether it's actually here, the hinterland, or even Morocco, who knows. But of course, you'd have to do the maths and see whether it works.
Anything else that you want to say?
Well, of course, this whole project only came to light because of the questions we've asked in Parliament. If we hadn't asked in Parliament about the nature of the joint venture with GBIC, none of this would be in the public domain, and I look forward to digging deeper in Parliament and getting to the crux of the matter.